Indiana football owns the nation's longest home winning streak at 15 games in a row. And I think it's time we start talking about Bloomington being one of the toughest places to play in the country.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day and the nation's #1 sports podcasting network. So thank you so much for making that so. And also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost right now on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, the back half of today's show is going to be talking about Indiana basketball. Updated bracketology, and the Hoosiers somehow didn't move. Don't know how that works. Plus, who's going to step up for this team? We know Lamar Wilkerson's awesome, but we need somebody else if the Hoosiers want to make the tournament and try to win a game in the tournament as well. But we start today's show with a stat, a fact, and the truth that Indiana football owns the nation's longest home winning streak, and that streak is at 15 games in a row. Now, there are some big teams on that list below you, right? Texas is on there, Ole Miss is on there, Ohio State, Texas Tech, right? But Indiana, at 15 games in a row, has not lost at Memorial Stadium. Fun fact, too, Indiana has yet to lose at home with Curt Cignetti as the head coach. And I think it's now time to start talking. Now that the Hoosiers are the best program in the country, they are the defending national champions with big schedule or big games on the schedule coming in this season. I think it's time we talk about Indiana being a tough place to play and one of the most intimidating places to play in all of college football, because I understand that for basically all of time, all of history, right, going to play a game at Indiana for football was not intimidating at all. Playing at Assembly Hall is. We know what that is like. That's always been one of the greatest venues in the country. But going to Memorial Stadium has never been an issue, right? Holds about 53,000 fans, not the biggest in the Big Ten, typically not even full, not loud, not intimidating. And when teams in the past saw Indiana on their schedule, regardless of where it was, they were like, we're good, not worried about it. But now Indiana is legit, and now we're defending national champions, and now we're a powerhouse in college football to be reckoned with. And we've seen what Memorial Stadium at its best can be for Indiana. For those of you watching on YouTube and have been watching on YouTube, remember this picture behind me? For those of you listening on audio, it's Indiana, Illinois at Memorial Stadium. Remember that game? In Illinois was a top 10 team, came to Memorial Stadium, so much hype, so much buzz. That was one of the greatest atmospheres we've ever seen at that place. And Indiana just embarrassed Illinois on the national stage. That's what our home stadium can be. And I expect it to only go up from here. You're getting renovations, you're getting money poured into it, the atmosphere is there, the fans are now there, which couldn't always be said in the past. And there's a reason that Indiana has won 15 games in a row there. Now, Indiana's won a lot of football games in the last 2 years. There's no doubt about it. And I will be the first to tell you, the schedule has not been all that difficult at home. But it's the idea that Indiana's not just winning games at home, they're running away with games at home. And against some inferior opponents, sure. Right, Maryland in 2024. You did play Nebraska, who you beat 56-7. You beat Washington in that first year, 31-17. Don't forget you beat Michigan here too. Michigan had to come here and lost 20-15 back in 2024. Don't forget this past season again, number 9 Illinois came to town. UCLA, Wisconsin, some of those teams who definitely were not as good as they need to be for the Big Ten. But Indiana has taken care of business on our home field. And here's what's exciting too. Now that it's becoming one of the better atmospheres in college football, look at the games you get on the schedule for this upcoming season at Memorial Stadium. Northwestern, not worried about it. Minnesota, Purdue, whatever. But Ohio State comes to town and USC comes to town. And Indiana has every chance to be 6-0. Actually, they should be 6-0 when Ohio State rolls into Bloomington on October 17th, because before that, you play North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky, Northwestern, Rutgers on the road, Nebraska on the road. So you get to bring the Buckeyes, who we know the logo, we know the brand, we know how big and bad they are. You get to bring them to your house after you just beat them in the Big Ten championship game this past season. That will tell us everything we need to know. And I think the USC game at home is going to be awesome too, right? Especially if USC, which it's Lincoln Riley, so you never know, but if they're actually in the hunt, right, for the Big Ten title, for the college football playoff, a national championship, right? How cool could that game be in the second week of November? And Indiana fans deserve to have these types of games at Memorial. Now that we are winning and bought in and getting the investment and everybody's excited about it, man, there are fans who were always at these games. There were fans who always showed up. But now Indiana is a force to be reckoned with, and I want road games at Indiana. Again, 53,000. It's nowhere near. The big house holds 100,000, right? The shoe at Ohio State is in the 80s or 90s, I think. But 53,000 strong when they're right there on top of you can really make a difference. And I think that's what Indiana can bring this season. And I think they can bring that for years to come. And I want road games at Indiana to be worrisome for the opposing team. I want them to be scared of this. I want them to be worried about this game. Will Ohio State be worried about coming here? Probably not about the atmosphere, but about the team. They should be anyway. And then they'll find out about the atmosphere, and then they'll be worried about it when they leave. USC should be the exact same way. They'll talk and act like it, especially the fans will act like it's no big deal. They're not worried about it, but that's what everybody has said about Indiana in general, and they're all getting beat. So I'm ready for this to pay off. I'm ready for this upcoming team, who, again, I think is going to be very good. I'm ready for them to put it on display and for Indiana to extend their home winning streak. It's at 15 right now heading into the season, the longest winning streak at home in the country. It belongs to your Indiana Hoosiers, and that's a big shout out to you, the fans, and excited for what the home games are on the upcoming season for 2026. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll flip to basketball because bracketologies have been updated for this week, and somehow the Hoosiers didn't move. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll talk about that right after this here on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. This episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. All right, use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience, just by placing your profit boost on an NBA future. So if there's a team you already like, there's a team you think is going to get hot, a team that's going to make a run, put your profit boost on it, right? A, you have a chance to win money doing that, but B, you're going to automatically be entered into their sweepstakes to try and win a trip to the NBA Finals. So visit FanDuel.com right now to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position, the one that you have to fill, is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's the stat that says it all. All right, in the minute or so that I'm talking to you right now, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And for you, listeners of this show, Locked On Hoosiers, will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on Locked On Hoosiers. Okay. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All right, welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And we flip our focus to basketball the rest of the way today because we've got updated bracketologies, and we continue to go back to Joe Lunardi at ESPN. I know CBS does one, and Yahoo will do one, and whoever else decides. Maybe I'll start doing my own bracketology. I don't know. But we stick with the one that's most known, the one that is starting to get a little bit more analytical, right, with Lunardi at ESPN. But even when you look across the board, Indiana has held steady as a 9 seed in most bracketologies. That's where he's got us. That's where the latest CBS one had us. And I don't really know how to feel about it. We've moved around. We've moved different regions, right? And getting paired up with different 1 and 2 seeds, but we're still holding strong as a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament. As of right now, paired up with the 8 seed Auburn. That's also paired up with the 1 seed of UConn, who of course would play a 16 seed and be waiting for you in the round of 32. Other teams in the South region, which would be played in Houston for the Elite 8. Our game, if we were to play this right now for the Hoosiers, would be in Philadelphia, which would be kind of cool. Paired up with teams like Virginia, Nebraska, BYU, Florida, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, and Houston. My goodness, that is a loaded portion of the bracket. And we've talked about what the expectations are, right, for this team, for Indiana, for year one. We talked about them coming into the year. We've talked about it all year. And now we're coming down the stretch, right? We've got less than a month to go. And the expectations haven't changed. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I guess we were hoping for the expectations to rise a little bit, right? Because year one head coach, all brand new players, brand new roster, not a single returning guy with minutes on this team from last year. And the expectation, at least for me, was simple. Just make the tournament. Just make the tournament. The last guy couldn't do it consistently. The previous guys couldn't do it consistently and really tailed off down the end. So just make the tournament and let's see where it goes from there. Let's see what happens after that. Even if you lose in the first round, just get to the tournament. Allow this fan base to be excited about that, to be back in the dance, to have Indiana's logo pop up on Selection Sunday and people to fill out the Hoosiers in their bracket. That's what the fan base wants. That's what the fan base deserves. I understand that the standard of Indiana basketball, we have much higher as a program down the road, right? And historically, making the tournament is not good enough, right? That's what middle of the pack ACC teams do, middle of the pack Big Ten teams do, middle of the pack SEC, Big 12, and mid-majors, right? Those teams celebrate making the tournament. Indiana historically doesn't just celebrate making it to the dance, but right now that's kind of where we sit. And we were hoping, that the team would be better than advertised or better than we thought, and maybe they could earn a 4 or 5 seed and try to be a second weekend type of team. But let's just be honest with ourselves. That's not what we have on our hands. We have an Indiana team that has a nice win or two, has a bad loss or two, and a lot of coin flip games on their schedule. Whether they won them, they lost them, or have them upcoming, Indiana is a coin flip type of team. If they're on, we're going to beat anybody. If we're off, we'll lose to anybody. And I don't know if I would rather Indiana be paired up with another middle of the pack, above the average P5 team, someone from the SEC like Auburn, or, a Miami, right? A P4 team, or a team like Utah State. Or if you do end up dropping down to like a 10 seed and having to play, I'm looking at some of the 7 seeds right now, Villanova, Wisconsin, Clemson, St. Louis. Like, oh gosh, I don't want to deal with St. Louis. Some mid-major that's confident in the way they play. No, I'm good. I would like our chances against Clemson. Villanova, I don't know, from the Big East. Wisconsin, you already beat them once. You can probably do it again, right? But that game's not played inside of Assembly Hall. So you get my point. There are certain teams that Indiana would match up good against, obviously, but I don't know what kind of a draw we're looking for. And so I don't think we're allowed to be picky either, right? We're not a 3 seed that's like, man, I really hope we get this 2 seed and this 1 seed compared to this and this. We're not really there for Indiana. Our pickiness is make the tournament. Get there. Do what you have to do to make the tournament. Now, if this were to happen today, if this bracketology from Lenardi were to happen today, the Big Ten and the SEC would both have 10 teams in the tournament. And I still think that number is high for the SEC. It could end up being high for the Big Ten too, because let's look at the bubble for a second. Last 4 buys, USC is in there. How big would that win have been for Indiana? Last 4 in, UCLA. How big was that win for Indiana? First 4 out, Ohio State. Remember, I keep telling you, that's the regular season finale. Indiana goes to Columbus to wrap up the season, and then nobody in the Big Ten is in the next 4 out. But you have a bubble team in 3 of the 4 categories from the Big Ten where they could all make it or they could all miss it. Teams like Purdue are obviously fine. You have teams like Michigan State who are a 4 seed in there right now. You have teams like Illinois as a 2 seed and things like that. But I do think the Big Ten has a couple of competitors in there. But my goodness, does the Big 12 look good right now? The Big 12, the teams at the top of that bracket or the teams in the top of that conference look insane. They look really, really good. I watched several games this week, the Iowa State game on Monday and Kansas over the weekend. Like, the Big 12 looks legit. But for Indiana, again, and Michigan is the number 1 overall seed, by the way. Indiana has to take care of business. I cannot stress that enough. With some of these weaker games you have coming up on the schedule, we cannot afford to play with our food here. Northwestern Minnesota, got to be wins. Have to be. Purdue this Friday, I'm not saying it's a half must win. That's not fair. That's not right. That's not correct. But my goodness, a win over Purdue or Michigan State. I know the Spartans dropped down in the AP poll. They're 15th right now. But man, getting that win, even on your home floor, which you obviously feel much better about, that would secure your spot. You get an upset win on one of those 2, you're in. 100%, no doubt about it. The Hoosiers would be in the NCAA tournament. But let's say you lose those. You cannot slip up against Northwestern and Minnesota, and it very well could come down to that game in Columbus against Ohio State. I don't want to get to that point. Let me be very clear. I do not want to be at that point. And I've seen some people talking about this too. I don't want to have our tournament lives hanging in the balance if we're heading to the Big Ten tournament. I don't really want that to be the case because that's bad news bears. That is not where you want to be. I've said it for years, and with how the tournament committee has acted lately, I've said it even more, and I've doubled down on it. You do not want to have your tournament lives hanging in the balance and in the hands of the tournament committee heading into your conference tournament, because they've told us that they don't matter. They've told us conference tournaments are worthless. They don't mean anything unless you just go and win it, where we have to give you an automatic bid. We don't care what you do in your conference tournament. We turn the TVs off. We make the brackets and we don't even watch, which is sad. And I think that's incorrect. I don't think that's how it should be, but that's how it is. So the Hoosiers have to find a way to get it done in these last 5 games. Either upset one of these 2 big teams like Purdue and Michigan State, or get it done against Ohio State and take care of business against Northwestern and Minnesota. I really was surprised, though, that Indiana didn't move in bracketology, but I don't know, given that you beat Wisconsin and Oregon, but then you lost to Illinois, I guess those kind of balance out. I don't really know. But Indiana controls its own destiny, man. How else would you want it other than being securely in? You control your own destiny. And hopefully that's the message that Darren DeVries is preaching to his team going into the rest of these games. And I hope he's also preaching and begging and asking for someone else to step up. Lamar Wilkerson's great, but someone else has to help him out. We talk about who that could be coming up next in our final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
All right, final segment on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. You follow us on your audio podcasting platforms, however you find us, and we appreciate you being a part of our everydayers and, again, just supporting the show that any way that you do. And we continue with basketball because it's a question, my goodness, we just keep finding ourselves asking. And it seems like it's after every tough loss, whether it's a close loss or a blowout loss for Indiana, the question is, hey, who's going to step up? And this isn't even the X factor conversation because we've had that already, right? We've talked about who could be the X factor for this team. Sam Alexis was a good answer. We've talked about Nick Dorn being that guy. Connerway was the guy for me early on this season. But this is a completely separate conversation because an X factor is someone who, in my opinion, at least for Indiana right now, an X factor would be, okay, Indiana's playing pretty good ball. You've got 2 or 3 guys in there that are playing consistent. You're winning some games. You're still losing some of the tougher ones, the bigger ones, but Indiana's kind of feeling themselves. Who's the X factor, the guy that could step up? And if he does, this team could go on a run. I think we kind of have to put a pin in that for now because Indiana just needs anybody else to play well. Anybody. I don't care who it is. Indiana needs at least one more person to help out Lamar Wilkerson because our guy is just out there on an island, man. He's averaging 21 points a game right now, is Lamar Wilkerson, and continues to put up historic night after historic night. And on the stat sheet, the season averages are not all that terrible. Tucker DeVries averaging 14, Tatum Connerway averaging 10, but we know that those numbers are just not consistent. And that's where somebody that doesn't know this team would look at that and say, oh, I mean, 21, 14, 10, 9, 9, 8. I mean, looks pretty good to me. Yeah, but you're not getting that on a consistent basis from all of these guys. Right, we know that Tucker is probably the most inconsistent player on this team, at least on the offensive end and shooting. He still does a good job rebounding and sharing the basketball. Defense is pretty horrific, but Tatum Connerway still not really playing significant minutes. What, he had 4 the other day against Illinois? Reed Bailey averaging 9 points a game. Come on now, we know we're not getting that from him. And then there's Nick Dorn. And I think Nick Dorn could be that guy. I just don't know if I have the confidence in him to do it here in these last 5 games. I don't know if I have the confidence in him to do it in the Big Ten tournament. And then if you do make the NCAA tournament, can he be somebody that can get hot for a game or 2? I think that's a possibility in the NCAA tournament. But to go out and ask him, hey, in these last 5 games in the Big Ten tournament, I need you to average 12 points a game. I just think that's a tall ask. I really, really do. He's got the ability, right? We've seen it. He's got the ability to do it, right? Look at his point total. Some of them in here, 11, 26 against UCLA, 18 against Purdue, 23, 14. He has the skill set, right? And I think he's got the shooting and the streakiness and the ability to get hot off of one make. That's why I think he could be your X factor, if you will, in the NCAA tournament. But I need somebody more consistent to step up and help the Hoosiers finish the season right and finish the regular season strong, trying to pull off an upset, whether it's this Friday at Purdue, the home game against Michigan State, the road game against Ohio State, and making sure you beat the other 2 teams that you're supposed to. And offensively, it's going to have to be defensively too. I go back to Sam Alexis, man. I do. He played good the other day. He played great the other day. Reed Bailey, I need him. You're just, God, the drop off with guys like Trent Sisley and Connor Enright. Desai Miles is starting to play a few more minutes, but I can't confidently put that on their shoulders because they just haven't done it. And really, they're not getting the minutes to do it either. I think I fall back to either Nick Dorn or Sam Alexis. Unless you can get Connerway back to playing significant minutes, right? He's had the injury and the illness and things like that. And so you run out of options. And the easy answer on paper is Tucker DeVries. That's the easy answer. It's like, man, this guy's averaged 15, 20 points a game his entire career. He's a great 3-point shooter, and he's a good basketball player when he wants to be. That would be the easy answer. But Indiana just doesn't have that, and he's not giving you that. Not on both ends of the floor, not in terms of effort, right? You just don't have that. But my goodness, what if he's the one to do it? What if he's the one? I would love that. I would love for that to happen. But I'm not putting my hard-earned dollars there. Heck no. Absolutely not. I'll take somebody else to step up and play harder, like a Sam Alexis or a Nick Dorn. But if you start to get 2 or 3 of those guys to help out Lamar, who is going to get his, but here's the problem with that. You're going to run into a team, and it very well could be Purdue this weekend on Friday. You're going to find a team that just shuts him down. And maybe not fully, because I don't think that's possible, but rather than him going off for 41, they're going to hold him to 13 or 15, which is good enough. And they're going to say, somebody else beat us. Or maybe they just let him go off for that many, and nobody else does anything, and you still lose the game. I don't know. He had 19 last time he played Purdue. He had 19 when he played Michigan State. His shooting numbers weren't great. 7 of 18 against Purdue, 6 of 14 against Michigan State. So maybe that's their strategy. I don't know. But man, you got to have somebody else on this team. And again, this is not the X Factor conversation. This is just somebody, please do something. So whether it's Darren DeVries begging for it, Lamar Wilkerson begging for it, or your mom in the stands begging for it, man, somebody has got to act like they want to play some basketball here and help the Hoosiers win some games down the stretch. Because if you don't, you're going to miss the tournament. The season's over. And that makes for a long offseason if you don't make the tournament with the fan base, with the donors, with the portal, with recruiting. You've got to start turning this thing around. And it's going to take somebody not named Lamar Wilkerson stepping up and helping the Hoosiers win the games that you're supposed to, maybe pull off an upset and get hot in March and try to get to the NCAA tournament and win a game or two there too. So we'll see who it is or if anybody does it. And Indiana has Purdue coming up on Friday. We'll continue to talk about that as the week gets closer. Probably talk to our friend Nick Arvin of Locked On Boilermakers as well, plus all the other football news and things as well. But we are done for today's episode. So thank you again so much for being here. And however you support the show, I really appreciate you. Okay, we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.